the expatriate Amerikaner here, joining you again. I'm actually inside of the Straßenbahn now. We're approaching Prenzlauer Promenade, and just wanted to show you a map here. It's Friday, so what I showed you was that the train is pretty full for a Friday at about 11 o'clock. Down here you can actually see how many different lines there are in Berlin. We're about right here right now, and we're driving to Hackischer Markt. From there we can take the S-Bahn, which is this gray line here, because when you're inside of the Straßenbahnen, what you see here are either U-Bahn-Stationen, underground stations, or Straßenbahn stations. What here underneath all of those different lines are gray lines, and that's all the S-Bahn, or the overhead line, the elevated lines. Sometimes they go under the ground too, so don't get confused, but just showing you how thick the network is of different trains, Straßenbahn trains and other underground trains that you can use. And here is actually the different lines that are primarily in the east side. If you look here, you can pretty much see where the dividing line was between East and West Germany, or East and West Berlin. West Berlin doesn't have any of the different streetcars, and here on this side you have the streetcars, and you can see that very clearly on this map here, how on the west side of this map they don't exist, but on the east side they're all here primarily. And down here, this is your S-Bahn, underground, and streetbahn lines. The S-Bahn is in gray though, and it's harder to see. I live up in here in this part of Berlin, but all the other lines here are primarily in color because you're riding in a streetcar and they want to show you what streetcar and underground options they have, and the S-Bahn is not really focused on this map as well as it will be when I show you the maps when I'm actually in the elevated S-Bahn line. So you have Straßenbahn, so that's what I'm in right now, with the street trolley car lines, that's what you would call it in English. And now we're actually on Alex here. Maybe I can show you the TV tower. And you have the Alexanderplatz station. The Born Identity was filmed here. And they actually did film it here and didn't tell anybody, and that's why you get some people looking at what's happening, and they look rather surprised because there was no prior acknowledgement or release that they would be traveling there. So we're slowly making our way to Hackischer Markt, and there's many little studio areas there. The one sad thing about Germany since the fall of the Third Reich is that you do have a lot of garbage laying everywhere, and that's in Europe everywhere. But I've seen photos from even during the East Communism days, you don't have as much garbage lying on the streets. That's one thing that the Germans are very, very, I would say, negligent about, is their tidiness. Here it looks like the Fernsehturm is being renovated. See a lot of construction going on there. If we make this light, we'll be slowly approaching the Berliner Dome. I don't necessarily want to have to stop this video, but I might have to. It might be boring just sitting here talking to you. This is a church. Parts of this church are still standing from the 1300s. When you walk in and you go to the left, I think it actually is the St. Nicholas Church. Can't remember the actual name of it. There's still murals from the 1300s. They're harder to see, but they're still there. So there's a lot of history here. It's interesting to think that this church was standing almost 650 years ago. Das Rote Rathaus. You have the red mayor building. That's actually where the Senate for the city of Berlin is at. I wish we could go further down that street, but the rail line doesn't go that way. You have the Berliner Dome, the very large church. There it is, actually. We might be able to see it one more time, maybe not. I'll go and walk by there and show you that. And we're going to be soon approaching our last stop here, which is Hackischer Markt. And that street takes you down to the museums. There's an island just made entirely composing of museums. And here's one of the train stations that wasn't completely obliterated from bombs, and it's still standing. It's Hackischer Markt. There's an interesting story here, where you see up there, where the sun pours in through those windows up on top. The communists were very angry because how it's constructed, it casts a shadow in the form of a cross, and that was not very well accepted, or can't think of the phrase right now. The communists were not very fond of that. This is all new construction that was built here. Gasag, I believe, is a Russian company that provides natural gas to Germany. Then you have here newer buildings with stores inside of them. A big popular thing now is bubble tea. I find that kind of interesting because bubble tea is a cooler drink, I guess now, a cold drink with little tea bubbles in it. To me it looks like nasty fish eggs. And the first time I actually ever had it was about 10 years ago when I was a policeman, and I was at a Hmong festival. The Hmong, H-M-O-N-G, are a group of people that live between China, Vietnam, Thailand, and in those areas, in the mountains primarily, and in other parts. They're an ethnic group that they speak their own language. They aren't really related to anyone else there. They're a mixture of everyone, and I had bubble tea there. So I'll be slowly taking you to the museum's island. You can see one of the buildings over the train over there. It's the Bode Museum. They have cool stamps, coins, artifacts, and I will be taking you there shortly. Thank you for joining me. This is Expatriate American signing off.